Welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight. I'm Kathy Costa, your host for today, and we have Susie co-hosting with us today. So we have a regular guest that's come on the show before. Her name is Colleen. She's, like many of us, been doing this for like many years now. So after you've been doing it for so long, though, you do like 100 things. So, well, it feels like 100 things anyway. So we're going to talk about with her, though, like spiritual healing, and how, everyday stuff, though, kind of comes up, and all the emotions that go with it. As we know, emotions can get pretty messy, especially if you don't acknowledge it. So that just, a little bit more intense that way. So we're just going to talk a little bit about that, and maybe some tools to help us along with it. So Colleen, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So how did you get started on the spiritual healing aspect, though? Like, how did it get to this point with you?
35 years ago, in simple nutshell thing, coming after a helliest time in my life, I went through a very profound awakening. Mm-hmm. It was like the veil was removed.
Okay.
And I know it was standing up for truth, the right way to be, mm-hmm. regardless of what was coming at me, and the love of my children.
Okay.
And like I said, it's hard to put in that nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was like the veil was removed. All of a sudden I saw things, I knew things, I had this energy that worked through me. It wasn't so much that I was given the gifts, that I was given the awareness of them.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and like realizing that I was always seeing deeper, always feeling deeper, and seeing beyond. I read. So at that point in my life, I was kind of given my divine purpose.
Okay.
I went through Who Me, You Gotta Be Kidding, and I was kind of shown how I've been prepared through time for this time.
Okay. Yes.
And so I put everything but my children on the back shelf and kind of have devoted my life to it.
Okay.
It's been an incredible journey.
Yeah.
It's taken me to the depths and to the heights. But a lot of it, my purpose was to help people, to teach them to help themselves, preparing them for these times that we're in this prophecy and this time of human evolution, and evolving with the rest of creation.
Now, what are you referring to when you say this prophecy that we have going on right now?
I don't care what culture, religion, they all kind of point to these times. And it actually has a lot to do with even the Mayan calendars and all of that. Every 26,000 years, as we go around our sun and our solar system is part of a much greater solar system. And every 26,000 years, and that's what we're doing. We're going through that point, but that's when there's been major earth changes, the floods, all of it.
Okay.
And Mother Earth is a living thing and being, and she's evolving, and all creation upon her. And humanity is no excuse.
Right. Right.
So right now, as we're going through this time and going through what is like called the photon belt,
okay,
it's like going through the Milky Way. It's more magnification of energies coming to Earth at the time. And we're all being activated in our DNA, our cellular level, and being forced to wake up to who we truly are.
Yes.
Okay.
To me, the best analogy that I kind of express is, if you can imagine yourself a faceted crystal ball. And we've been focused on one facet, saying this is all there is, this third dimensional plane.
Okay.
When it's waking up and realizing there's all these other parts of self that have always been there, working on all these other levels. They all have different sensory systems, lessons, teachings, healings to do. And all light moves in spiral action. To me, it's the light of love, the light of life, the light of God, Creator, the light of His creation, and the light of our being. And we're beings having this physical experience, expressing itself through the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual bodies, both on that inward and that feminine aspect, and in that outward. But we have been so pulled off balance of walking in that light and in that love. We even have a warped sense of what real unconditional love is.
Yeah.
We say, I'll love you this way, but you got to love me this way back.
Exactly.
Rather than saying, I'm loving you unconditionally out of love.
Yep.
And trusting and knowing that what we put out comes back, but not always in the way we want it.
Exactly.
Or in the way that we want it to, or even from the same place.
Yeah.
But it's always when we most need it and when we're most willing to receive it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we're all being forced to wake up, and if you go in that spiral growth, you know, we come in as a child and say, oh, I might be able to crawl. And we go around that wheel, we try it, we fall on our nose and our shoulder, and then we kind of like, we master it, and we kind of, okay, I think I got this.
Yeah.
We forget about where we banged our nose or bumped our chin, and then we apply what we learn, only to go around that wheel again to say, maybe I might be able to apply what I learned from crawling to walking. And thus is that spiral growth of life. There's always something to learn, to grow, to heal, to balance, and a blessing to receive. But we get really stuck and pulled off balance. And we've been taught that all our security lies outside of ourselves rather than within our connection to creation and Mother Earth. And we're taught to feel guilty about this, feel inferior about that, feel better than or less than, or fear this or that. And it's everything that keeps us from our true self. Fear is the absence of light. So if you look at all the fear-fed stuff out there, all those fear-fed emotions and thoughts, it's the absence of light. And we start shutting off our light. And we have to wake up. We have to evolve. A lot of us are out there looking and saying, you know, bringing in my life, what they want or that peace, but then they, you know, if we're not willing to receive it, if we're not letting to let go of our old thinking or our beliefs that it's even possible. And the biggest thing I have found, it's really important in these times, because as everybody's stuff's coming up, and it's coming up to get out. You get a cut in your hand, it gets infected, you got to get the infection out first before it's going to heal. But that same thing applies through the mental, through the emotional, and the spiritual bodies. And we all kind of reach in, but if we don't clean up those lower bodies, it's like trying to put a 120 in a 220 socket, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way, It just doesn't.
You know, that we have to raise our frequency and vibration back into that love, into the light. But it's also morals, values, integrity, that right way to be, both to ourselves and to each other. And to creation. But that emotional body is that electromagnetic force that draws things to us to get us to heal what's off balance. And this is where people say, I changed my thinking. Why, you know, what am I doing wrong? Why do I keep drawing this stuff to us? When they haven't released it out of their emotional body. And if you look at any addiction out there in society, and I don't care what it is, it's to numb emotions. But there's a difference between feeling and emotions. Feelings come from within, where it resonates with that light of your being, and the divine will expresses itself through feeling. But emotions are reactions to outside energies. Okay? And so we want to numb those, is what society does. But the feeling and that knowing and that light essence of our being is underneath all those layers. So it's vital that we clean up that body. And even when we do and get it on an inward expression, and then it comes around again to see how we apply what we learn. And we go, oh, I must not have gotten it. Here it comes again. No, it's just carrying that healing outward in the male energy and giving the opportunity to say, I used to react this way. This is what feels right for me now. You know, but people really, We put so many Band-Aids on effects
Yeah,
rather
temporary.
than heal the cause, and then the effects change.
Yeah.
But we're all kind of going through that grand battle within. Which one's going to control the show, ego or true self? And we gave ego a job it can't handle, let alone admit at it, right?
It reminds me of that Native American saying, I think it's from the Cherokees, where the grandfather teaches like a parable to the grandson, that there are two wolves. And one is good, like all the good stuff, all the good emotions, and the other one's like all the bad stuff. I forget exactly how it goes.
I agree.
You know, and the grandson's like, which one wins? And the grandfather said, the one you feed.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Very much
The
so.
one you feed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's I have that saying though on my fridge. You'd think I'd know the saying though better than that by now, but it's like I read it, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
The one you feed.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a choice. Any thought, feeling, action, we make a choice. And I don't care what it has to do with, how big or how small. We choose love or we choose fear. And when we choose fear, it's only to come back and say, oh, I should have chose the love.
Yeah.
But we have to release the ill effects of it and walk in that love.
So
and in
now,
that choice.
so now, when you first felt that calling, that gift, what were your first steps? Did you know, like how some people say, well, I have a mentor, I have a teacher or something. What did you do for the first steps?
To me, it was very profound. I have to say this, after coming out of a hellish time in my life, I felt like a deck of cards across the table. I stayed 30 feet away from anything paranormal or astrology or any of it.
Okay.
I was born and raised in a Methodist church. I was always nature's child and had my own little beliefs in God, but after it was all over, I felt like a deck of cards across the table. It was like, after all this fight for survival, where do I go from here?
Exactly. Yep.
And out of the blue one day, I get a call from a friend that was a fellow photographer. We used to shop talk, let me borrow your lens, come over and I'll pick up some business cards. He was working at the university at that time. Interested in freelance work. It's like, yeah, I could use the money now. So he came over a couple days later. He had been in a car accident. I hadn't seen him in 5 years, and he had disappeared. He had a bruise on the brain the size of a baseball. Back in 1991, he even had a TEMS unit on his belt to kill the pain. And I'm getting my cup of coffee. Where'd you disappear to? Hadn't said anything about my life. And got the coffee out, made, and put it in front of him, and he said, I've been through a lot of self-hypnosis and self-relaxation. And I went, I could use some of that, but I hadn't said anything about my life. And he said, here, I'll show you. And had me lay down on my floor, and I trust me, he sat there and guided me through my first mental and physical relaxation. And once was, twice he said something else, and it was like, And the third thing he said to me was, you're not responsible for your son's birth defects. And he didn't even know I had this child since I had seen him. And I sat up and said, you were sent here. And he said, I know. And he pulled something out of me without even touching me. I could feel this energy. The phone rang, got up and answered, and got off of it real fast. He got up and said, I'm a healer, so are you, blah, 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 and walked out my door. The next day I was out on the boat with my sister and my kids, saying, man, you won't believe this strange experience I had. And she probably thought I was the biggest space cadet there was that day, because every time I went to recall something he said, every sparkle of light on the water, I was up above and I saw a purpose and reason for everything that happened in my life, from the smallest to the overall, and nothing had ever made more sense of it. I went home that night, got the kids to bed, had been married to a plumber, so I had a jacuzzi in my bedroom, and realized what he pulled out of me was all this pain from a lot of abuse in my life. And if this is real, God, thank you. And the light came in my window, smacked me in the head, and I've never been the same since. It was like the veil removed.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I had spent the next couple trying to figure out what just happened to me. And the more I doubted it, the more things that happened to me said, this is real, take a look at it.
Yeah.
And one day I was coming home from a snow drive that took 5 hours, and it should have been an hour.
Yikes.
And I stopped at home, and it was like coming home from court with one of the kids' fathers, and went to say something in the mirror to myself, where you kind of say, okay, get your stuff together. As I went to say that, I realized it wasn't me talking. And I had learned to pay attention to guides, and I realized in that moment it was my teacher who'd been with me my whole life, and it's been the best friend I've ever had.
Oh, the teacher in spirit?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at that point, realizing he's been the one picking me up my whole life and cheering me on, that it really allowed me to have that trust.
Oh, nice.
But after about 6 months, it's like, okay, well, I'm getting to accept this, because the more I doubted, the more things would happen. Say, And I was like, okay, what do you want me to do with it? And I was guided and given a vision for 3.5 weeks, night and day.
Nice.
Wow.
And I went through, my kids grounded me.
Yeah, they're good for grounding.
And I went through the whole, me, you gotta be kidding. And then I was kind of shown how I've been prepared for a time through this. And at that point, I put everything but my children on the back shelf and devoted my life to it. It's been an adventure, hasn't been easy.
No, well, yeah, that's just how it goes, right? Though.
Yeah, dare to walk that different path.
It's funny how, you know, Spec keeps putting you back on what you're supposed to be doing. You know, we're trying to venture off that. It's like, nope, there's roadblocks, you can't be doing that, so let's go this way. You know, so that's, I've seen that happen a lot.
I've been forced up against that wall to trust and believe.
Yeah, that's
and
a tough lesson to learn.
Down.
Yeah, once you learn that, though, it's like you can't go back.
Right,
You know, because
you
like
can't
you've learned,
unseen what you've seen.
Yeah, really can't, though. It's my guiding force for a lot of stuff, though, because I've learned to just kind of go with it, though. It always makes sense later, never before. You know, never before, because the logic part of our brain is like, this doesn't make sense. You know, why is this happening?
Right.
But
there's a reason for everything. We don't always see it, but it's there. But it's learning that trust and that part of self that knows that it's connected.
Yes, absolutely.
So now, are you working with clients?
I have.
Do you know?
Yeah, I do.
Good.
I'm never really big on marketing myself, because to me, it's a way of life.
Yes.
It's not just it's not a business, it's a way of life. And I've had one foot in native world and one foot in white man's world, and I don't feel like I belong in either one sometimes. But yes, I teach classes and workshops. I do speaking for churches. I go where Spirit takes me.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
I haven't done much this last year. Actually, I had neck surgery. I had 2 titanium rods and 12 screws.
That's a big surgery.
Put in my neck earlier this year, so I'm doing really good.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. We never know it.
But so I've taken care of me, which I haven't done for a while. But it is time to do the stuff, though, because after I was given a vision, I took a 30-day trip across the country a year later with me and my kids and a friend and her kids. And it was one profound event or another. I was shown what these times were about. I even had a paranoia of knowing what I knew. But my teacher came in and said, well, if you help people through these times, you got to know what they're dealing with. And I have watched things I was shown that people thought I was crazy for saying years ago. I'm watching happen. And I've seen happen. And we are well in the times, and it's vital that humanity wakes up at this time. If we want to make it through these times.
I think we're being forced to. There's been so many changes, though, and things that feel like it's completely upside down. It can intentionally put upside down, though, so we can be forced to see.
Right. And regardless of what's going on in the world, it's all making us look at within where our morals, where our values are. even the negative has that purpose in
Yeah.
doing that. Sad to say that we took that long to have to do that.
Well, yeah, if you're being forced to, it's like you got to do one way or the other. If you don't take the easy route, so you have to do the hard way.
But yeah, and it's as difficult as simple as we want to make it too.
True.
It's all in how we look at it and a matter of perspective.
Yes.
And when we find that perspectives, we can get that understanding. It's also the balance, the healing, all things that are good.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we can't ignore what's going on negativity-wise in the world.
Yeah.
But there's a difference of being aware of it and fearing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when we shift our focus from the fear-fed monopolies, and they create fear, feed on them, and monopoly is whatever you want to call it, dark energies.
Yeah.
It's they'll get tangled in their own web they read through time.
Yes.
But Creator's always had a much greater divine plan. But we all have a role in it. We are all a leaf on that tree in humanity. And it's really vital that we, even the smallest, that we all have a purpose, that we wake up to it. We're all searching because a part of us knows that this isn't the way it's meant to be.
No. No. We're definitely virtually too off our path the way things are supposed to be going. But so that's why we get forced back on. And people don't. And a lot of us, I think, we're starting to understand that like if you venture off too much, though, you're gonna get hop back onto what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So but I mean, I know that's your whole point, though, too, though, to get to that point. So it's like we can't deny stuff, but yet though we can't control it either.
Right, and the more we control it, the more we screw it up, actually.
Yeah, true, very, very true.
We know best, but no, they will let
really
us know.
don't,
Yeah, definitely.
We'd like to think we can control stuff because we think we see everything, but we don't.
Yeah.
And that's where spirit comes in.
And it's a trusting,
It is.
It's allowing and just trusting.
I think the biggest thing that humanity is missing, we are not taught to love and to believe in ourselves.
There you go. There you go.
And I think this is the biggest thing missing in society.
It is, yes.
Especially with the children. And it's vital that as older adults, and I know we're close to the same age, you're a little younger, but
a little bit.
it's vital that we heal ourselves.
Oh, exactly.
And that we share our wisdom. And we don't realize as we're healing ourselves, as we are part of the greater whole, we are helping the greater whole.
Yes.
And not only we're healing it for the generations gone before us, we're healing it for the future generations.
Yeah.
And it's vital that we recognize that we're doing it here, right here in the now.
Yeah.
But every step, it's a choice. What do we want to create?
Yeah.
And leading by the example definitely helps with that, though, because the younger people do watch. It's like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Knowledge isn't wisdom until it's applied.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
And it's vital that we do it. But we live, I think I said to one of the ladies out here, we live in a society that was so focused on the mistakes rather than what we learn from them and how we apply what we learn.
Yeah.
But we keep that on people, on each other,
And the pointing the fingers, oh, that was all them, that wasn't, and that.
Most people
It's
project
just-
onto others what they deny within themselves.
Yeah.
If you just listen to them, they're telling you what they're up to.
Yes. Never thought of it that way, but that's true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you just listen, they'll tell you how they're accusing everybody else and throw it
Yes.
on it.
Yeah.
But in this time, we're all making that choice, whether we're going to wake up and evolve or we're going to continue to live in fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not everybody will make that choice to grow, to evolve. But the ones that are, they're here to set the example. People are saying, what can I do? But every little thought, every little feeling, every little action affects everybody around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most people look at peace and harmony in the absence of chaos when it's learning to maintain it in the midst of it and maintain it.
Yeah. And that definitely helps us through the chaos.
Huh?
That definitely helps us through the chaos.
Yes, ride those waves like a surfboard.
Right? Yes, absolutely.
Maintaining that balance.
Yeah.
So is there any, so everything we've talked about is very important though. So is there any like one thing though that people can do for themselves though to help them find the true path, the true way that they can be better for themselves? I know that's tricky.
Couple
though.
things.
Okay. I know that's tricky.
Get me going, I don't shut up.
No, please keep talking.
First of all, a lot of us say, okay, God, bring this in my life.
Oh.
And my thing is, let me see what I need to see to understand what I need to understand, to be all that I am and meant to be, that's in my highest good and the good of the greater whole. Creator's got a much better picture than we do.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So let him decide how to dish it down. That's number one. And only the divine truth come through. But learn how to listen. Learn to shut off the mental
chatter.
choice. And then, and to go within. Don't be afraid to go within. A lot of people are afraid to go within because, oh my gosh, what if all those self-doubts and self-judgments and all that stuff I've been beating myself up with is true.
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, it's the biggest cock of crap we've ever bought into. That's number one.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's just one.
What I said about the emotional body is vital that we clean it up. Our society says, numb it, manage it, put a Band-Aid on it, when it just needs to come up and get up. It is scientifically proven you can't hold energy still. Okay? But this is what we try to do, and our bodies start screaming, saying, you can't hang on to this anymore. Okay? It just needs to come up, to get up. So it's a matter of loving and honoring self enough to take the time to do it for self.
Yeah.
The best explanation in simple form that applies to everybody on this planet, and this is a lot of what I teach, in a simple form, you are a being of light having a physical experience, expressing itself through a mental, emotional, physical, spiritual body, and we have more than that, both on the inward and outward. And just like, and we're all going through that grand battle within, which one's going to control the show, ego or true self? And we gave it a job it can't handle, but it's not meant to be the driver of the car. It's the steering wheel, it's something else, but it's not the driver. And taking back that control. But just as a light reflects through a drop of water, you have your 7 energy centers. Each one relates to organs, tissues, and glands, balance of emotion, balance of thinking, a balance spiritually, both on the inward and outward expression. Okay? And each one relates to a force in nature that moves energy. Earth, air, fire, water, sound, thought, and desire. A color of the rainbow, a note of the scale. So base chakra, tailbone, hips, hands, and feet. Balance of security versus insecurity. Coming in this life, not expecting what we came in. A lot of shifting and shaking in the foundation, never having that safe place to say, it's okay to be me and feel what I need to feel. And we start shutting off that light. Second chakra, reproductive glands, mid-lower back, wrist and ankles. And this is where humanity's really stuck. It's self-love and self-acceptance. It's that right to be. But we say feel guilty about this, feel inferior about that. This is where you get all those grips in the lower back, where we come in. What we got love was like, oh, I'm not going to feel that side. Right brain, left side of the body is the feminine energy, that intuitive, creative, and feeling. The right brain, left side of the body is the male energy in that outward expression.